And now we're getting ready for our panel. First, I'd like to bring up on stage Mr. Newton Sanon. He is the CEO of OIC Florida. Newton, come on up and have your seat. He is one of our top performing grantees. They're located in Florida, which is the state that historically has purchased the most bonds. I'd also, how about that, like to bring up an employer that has been working with OIC for quite some time, Mr. Charles Maymon, who is the CEO of the American Ambulance Company, which is a global employer with offices throughout the United States. The next person I would like to bring up is Ms. Carla Hepburn, who is a participant, or who was a participant with OIC program under REXO 5, and she is a participant that was bonded by the federal bonding program. And now I'm going to turn this back over to Eric Seleznow to do the facilitation for our panel.
Great, thank you very much, and thanks for making the time to be here, all of you today. You all play very key roles and from different places within the system, so it's just going to spend about 15 or 20 minutes chatting a little bit about the federal program and how you've used it. Newton, it's good to see you again. Thanks for being up here.
Thank you.
You're up in D.C. so much, we might need to get you an apartment up here, but it's good to see you. And, you know, OIC has a long, distinguished history in Florida. You've used the program. You've probably used the tax credit as well. This is challenging work, and I'd like to hear a little bit about how you've used the program. Why don't you tell us a little bit about OIC, who you serve, what you do, and then we can talk about the bonding program.
Sure. Thank you so much, and we're proud to be here. So we want to thank the administration, President Obama, and Secretary Perez for this opportunity. And OIC was established in 1964 by the late Reverend Leon Sullivan. We're a community-based workforce development organization. The inference there is that there's access to all kinds of credentials in this country, but in addition to access to credentials and a job, there are other areas, elements that tend to deter academic and vocational gains. And one of those things is incarceration. So our organization works on not only providing access to credentialing jobs, there are all the other barriers that might impact a person becoming economically self-sufficient, such as in trying to get a job if you've been incarcerated. So this particular program, the bonding program, has been a great tool for us. You know, we first and foremost say that we ask employers, we meet them where they are. Business's job is to run a business. And so we first make sure people are equipped and are prepared for that respective job. But then there's the second issue. What about their issues, their infractions that might create some concern and reservations for employers? That's when you kick in is a second tier. After you've convinced them that this person is qualified, that why should they be concerned, not be concerned about the issues of their infractions? And that's where we tend to introduce the bond. But I'll tell you, Eric, we always start with business to make sure people are qualified, and it's our job to do that. Then we introduce the bonding program to mitigate their concerns. And it's been a very effective tool for us.
So this is not a charity?
It's not, by no means. In fact, I tell all people, you know, we who run nonprofit organizations, they call us the bleeding hearts, but we always say that we still run a business as well. And we also recognize that there are two customers. There's the students who are looking for an opportunity to be gainfully employed, but businesses, we want to make sure they're the end users. And we say to them, we want to make sure we're helping your bottom line. This is a qualified candidate who happen to have some issues, and here's a tool that helps us mitigate those concerns that you might have.
And it just takes that concern right off the table.
Absolutely.
And do you use that for all jobs, some jobs, just high-risk people? You have to be judicious in how you use that, I assume.
I tell people all the time, and oftentimes people say, well, how'd you get that person hired? I said, every circumstance is going to be different. And we make sure that we approach every student and every employment opportunity uniquely. And in some instances, you need to use that bond. In some instances, you don't. And so it really does vary, Eric. And I tell our staff all the time, take every opportunity to be very, very specific and intentional about the circumstances of that opportunity, as well as the circumstances of that respective job seeker. And if there's an instance where you need to use it, please do that. And sometimes, even if we don't think there's a concern, we would suggest to the employers, here's in addition to that a bond. And a lot of times, as you suggested earlier, they typically will say, you know what, the fact that you even offered this bond, they usually will back off and give them a sense of reassurance that you're confident, and that confidence protrudes on, and in fact, give them opportunities to land that employment opportunity.
That's and do you? That's a very accurate point. And do you have do you budget for these in your grants for a certain number of bonds per year? Is that what you do?
No, we don't typically do that. To date, we've worked with the local workforce boards, and they typically are the ones to do it. However, I met with the VP today, and we're going to be talking here briefly. So you've already helped us engage a relationship. We're going to be entertaining a conversation where all OICs in the country, as a matter of fact, will be entertaining a partnership with this entity to take a look at the bonding. So you've helped us already today again, Eric, and I appreciate that.
Well, you just made a couple of really great points, and that is sometimes it's nonprofits that hold the bonds and can write them. Sometimes they go through the state bonding coordinator. Sometimes they can go through the One Stop American Job Center program, which I was just thrilled to hear that you're doing that in Florida. And again, Florida's a big writer of bonds. So let's go talk to an employer for a minute. Charles Maymon is with American Ambulance, and American Ambulance is a national company, is that correct?
Well, American Ambulance itself was a company that began and has its roots in South Florida. So it was at that time and through that process that I met Newton. Actually, the way that started with us, Newton met our human resources manager, Mary, who's in the audience today. And Mary came to me and talked to me about the program, and I said, okay. And we began a relationship with Newton. Newton gave us 3 employees, 3 new employees. All 3 of the employees originally became emergency medical technicians. And I'll just focus and talk to you about them as individuals for just a moment. One of them became an emergency medical technician, was with us for about 6.5 or 7 years, decided that he didn't really enjoy it all that much, and now is the pastor of a local church in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and we're very, very proud of him. The second gentleman is an EMT, emergency medical technician, with us today, remains in our employ and has done an outstanding job. And he also remains an employee of American Ambulance Service. And the third gentleman, who's in the audience today, is somebody that I really want to spend a couple of moments with you talking about. His name is Quinton Washington. Quinton Washington is a rock star in the emergency medical services world. When Quinton arrived, of course, he was coming to us from, his past environment and his background was what it was. Quinton became an emergency medical technician. Quinton then became a state licensed Florida paramedic. Quinton, from there, moved on to become a critical care transport paramedic. And for those of you who don't quite understand the world that, and the work that we do, when we talk about a critical care transport paramedic, Quinton doesn't respond to 911 calls. Quinton responds to a patient who's lying in an intensive care unit in a hospital, who's in the most critical of situations, is extremely ill, and the hospital that they're in cannot care for them. Quinton is responsible for the movement of that patient from hospital A to hospital B, where they can receive definitive care. He moves patients who are on ventilators. They may have 5, 6, 7 IVs running. He understands the drugs, the mechanism. He can read a 12-lead EKG, interpret it. He's carrying 60 drugs on board his ambulance, and he's handling the sickest of sick patients. That's what a critical care transport paramedic does. He has a certification through Cleveland Clinic of Ohio to do this. So we are extremely proud of him. And now, as healthcare evolves and paramedics begin to deliver a different level of service, we have now moved into the world of community paramedics. And for those of you who don't know what a community paramedic is a paramedic is a paramedic that will respond to you in a vehicle. He's alone or she's alone in a car. They are there, they'll come to your home, and they are there to stop you or keep you from going to the emergency room. They will treat you and provide a myriad of services, carrying some 75 drugs on board, working with through telemedicine online with physicians, and now Quinton has achieved this certification and will be one of the first paramedics in the state of Florida to deliver these services. Quinton, stand up.
Hey, Quinton, it is okay to smile. It's a good thing.
If you don't mind, I just also wanted to point out to you, on the flight up here from Miami, he and Mary came up together yesterday, and they were on a commercial airliner, and they called and said, we have a medical emergency on board. I fly quite a bit, but I never seem to run into this stuff. But Quinton was able to diagnose a potential deep vein thrombosis on a woman, and prescribed treatment, and was able to tell the captain that he was able to keep the plane en route to D.C. and that he thought the patient would be just fine to be treated upon arrival.
Can't make this stuff up.
So great story. So let me go back a little bit. When Newton and OIC first called you or communicated with Mary or whoever in your company, did you guys say, what is this? What's this about? Or did you find them? How did that happen, and what were your original feelings when they said, hey, we've got these former offenders we'd like you to hire?
I want to tell you that Newton's great at his job. And,
Obviously.
so Newton recruited Mary. It was easy. Mary came into my office and told me the story, and I won't say I wasn't dubious at first.
For sure.
As
I would hope
anybody
that you
would
would
be.
be.
But I've got to tell you that our involvement with the program and with Newton, with OIC over the years has just been tremendous. We want to continue and will continue working with Newton and OIC. It's a program that we are able to grasp and to understand as an employer. In our world in emergency medical services, taking somebody who's returning to the workforce and allowing to become an emergency medical technician. And by the way, we have folks that will move on into the public sector. Into delivering into fire service, becoming fire rescue paramedics, and doing these, providing these services. So we see it as a real plus. We really do. And I'll tell you one last story. It could have been anybody that came to us from OIC, but it just happened to be Quinton, and it's one of Mary's favorite stories. Quinton was a very new employee at the time, and he was driving a car that was in pretty tough shape, and he had to get to work, and his car broke down on the Palmetto Expressway. For those of you who are from Florida, if ever, it's a heavily traveled road. Got his car to the side of the road and probably walked and ran about 2.5 miles and made it to work on time. And when he was asked, when he was asked by his supervisor, Quinton, why didn't you just call us and tell us you were going to be late, or aren't you worried about your car? Quinton's response was, I can replace the car, I can't replace my job. So that alone, if that gives you any indication of what we've gotten through through OIC and the federal bonding program, it's treasure.
I think those are excellent stories. Congratulations. Good job. Don't let him go anywhere unless he's moving up. The bonding program helps provide an opportunity. I think there are thousands of Quintons all over this country who really can do well, and if they're it breaks stereotypes and provides opportunity and gets, Mary had to figure it out. You as an employer had to, that is your business. That's what you do every day. And taking risks, is a little bit of a challenge. It sounds like you've worked on a great partnership. Again, through the federal bonding program, there's partnerships like this all over the country. This is an example of one in Florida. That is fantastic. We all should be proud about the partnership you did. And you as an employer should be especially proud and of your staff for taking these risks, but for you for sticking with it over time. Really says quite a bit about your company and you as a person. So thank you. So Carla Hepburn. Carla, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, what is your story? Tell us. You got a nice smile. You're excited to be up here in front of all these strangers.
Yeah.
You were able to be bonded.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that.
I was incarcerated for 6 years, and before I was released, I received a letter from the OIC program stating that when I got out, they would love to help me transition back into society. So they're located inside a workforce, but before I got into the program, I just would like to say the workforce is not designed for my special needs. So when I was introduced to the OIC program, the staff there know exactly what I'm going through. They know how to talk to me and mentor me, because my mother died when I was in prison, and I don't have a father. And so you just need that talk sometimes to keep you going. And when I walked in there, they helped me, gave me encouraging talk. They got me into classes because I didn't know how to email, and I didn't know how the proper way to write a resume or any of those things. So OIC helped me, with a lot of things besides the federal bonding. The bonding, they made me go to classes to get bonded, and I received paperwork with a seal and everything on it. So when I was introduced out to the workforce, I kind of kept that as my trump card. in my folder. So I would present myself, and I'm really bubbly, and I have a great personality. And then when I tell them about the fact that I was incarcerated for 6 years, you can see the deflation. They're, oh. But then I pulled that out, and then they're like, oh, okay. So then, it's a really great thing, and I'm glad that I got the opportunity, because a lot of people that I still Facebook with that are incarcerated wonder why. How are you doing so well? What is that about? And can you help me? And I always give them the number and say, at the end of the day, you have to do the legwork. I got that letter and I said, I can never come back to this place. And I took the initiative. And when I first got out, I didn't have a car. And I rode a bus, and I got there. And if it wasn't for the staff at OIC that made me feel comfortable, I probably I don't know where I would be today.
Carla, if I can interrupt you, I'm just going to get personal just for a
That's
second.
okay.
I can't think of anything scarier than sitting in prison, you're 90 days, 6 months out from a release date, and worried about if you're going to be able to get a job. I can imagine that was something that was on your mind quite a bit.
Yep.
And I can't think of, and having worked with so many people like Carla over the years, I can't imagine anything more difficult than sitting in an interview. Think about this. Everything's going great. You got the skills, you got your foot in the door, you're in an interview, and then did they ask you about a conviction, or did you volunteer that?
They ask, that's the first thing they ask you. Have you ever been convicted of a felony? And we're at OIC, they tell you, be truthful.
So you were ready for that question?
Oh, yeah.
You were prepared for that question?
Because at the program, they tell you that.
Did they role play it with you before you went?
They role play with you. There's videos that you watch the correct way and not the correct way, how to dress, and they tell you they train you on the key words to use when you are, even when you're filling out an application, the question on the application is, have you ever been convicted of a felony? Can you please list? And they tell you to write, we'll discuss an interview. Because when they look at what your convictions are there, they'd be like, oh, no, But if you listen to my story and look at me, and I'm genuinely talking to you and giving you eye contact, my body language is telling you, I really want this. I just made a mistake. People have a heart. People are not machines. They're not just going to say, no, 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 no. So you have to be able to present yourself and tell your story to them. And you never know. Somebody's cousin, niece, twice removed, uncle, they may have been incarcerated, so they'll give you that chance. But it needs to be more programs like what he has here going on, because it's great. If you don't have that support, and I've been behind the walls, and I know that a lot of inmates do not have positive influences. So for you to come out, and if you say, I'm done with that life and I'm not going to associate with those people no more, where do you go? When you walk into a workforce, a normal career establishment, they don't know how to help you. They don't know. When you tell them, well, I got a background, do you think they're going to hire me? The first thing they're going to say is, because they are ignorant and they don't know, is, oh, no, they're not going to hire you. Where when you versus to a program like OIC, they know how to talk to you. They're going to tell you, they're going to critique you, they're going to polish you up, that rough little stone you are, and send you right back out.
Carla? I couldn't have explained some of these issues any better, so I won't.
Yes.
Really impressive, and your enthusiasm and energy is really contagious. And I would have hired you in a heartbeat. You had me at a low.
It's kind of a paid forward, because he helped me with the federal bonding program and getting my job. I work at Firehouse Subs in Miami, and I started off as a crew member, but now I'm the general manager of a franchise. Now I told my boss the truth of everything, and now she actually listened to what I said, and she takes inmates from the work release center that's down the street and lets them come work there, because I told her, you have something to prove. So you're going to have an employee that that is really a die-hard employee because they're like, man, I got to get ready for the world. Even though they're still incarcerated, those boys, they work really, really hard, you know, and it's teaching them because some of them never, ever had a job before.
Wow. So there's 5 partners that make this happen. There's sort of the United States Department of Labor's over $82 million in investments in programs like this. And then there's the grantees themselves, folks like OIC who do this work. There's employers like Charles out there. We got a state bonding coordinator to pull it all together. And we've got people like Quinton and Carla who are great benefits. I mean, would you bet on them? Sure you would. You know, would you hire them? Sure you would. If they walked into your office and then had to have that conversation with you, it's going to make you think twice. They're able to explain it through some of these great programs. They're able to get a bond that helps sweeten the pot and maybe push the employer over the edge a little bit. But it really is a partnership between people like Carla and Quinton, programs like OIC, and employers like Charles. So I really want to thank you all for joining me today. We're going to wrap up and move to the next part of the program. Very excellent stories, excellent illustrations about how it all comes together. I know Deputy Secretary Lou is and the Secretary are very interested in these programs. And, you know, we want to create more demand and get more use of this bonding program over the coming years. So thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Do they wait there? Oh, you guys have to wait. Wait a second. You guys have to come back up. Come on, Jacqui, run the show.
I was trying. I was sitting right there to give it the cue.
Okay.
No, we want to really extend our appreciation to you, and we have some just a little gift, certifications from the U.S. Department of Labor, thanking you for participating today, thanking you for participating in the federal bonding program, but also charging you with the responsibility that Carla took on herself as being ambassadors for these programs and the federal bonding program. So when you come up, Eric is going to give you your plaque of appreciation. Newton Sanon from OIC.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you. Thank you, brother. Yeah.
And we want to just take a little time because they've taken a lot of time with us and a whole lot of hard work, right? Okay. We have Carla Hepburn.
Come on down,
our stellar graduate from the OIC program. Kim Parsons, our Virginia State Bonding Coordinator. I know your phone is ringing off the hook. And our wonderful employer that has joined us, Mr. Charles Maymon from American Ambulance, and who we are looking forward to working with him to help staff his offices across the country.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you all so very much, and thank you, audience, for joining us today. We have some refreshments in the back for you. Please come and fellowship with us, talk to all of our participants and awardees, and congratulate them. And we really appreciate you helping us to have this grand finale for National Reentry Week. Thank you.